Now this is a clip from Banaman, a YouTube channel which I thoroughly recommend. I'll leave the links below to this video and his channel. And these guys here, you could say, are sovereign warriors or sovereign constables or peacekeepers. And these guys are working to help people resist being evicted from their homes. When it's the last line of defence, when the banksters are coming for your house, and this is done completely illegally and unlawfully, and we've got to be able to resist that. And here you can see a little clip from the video where you can see it can get pretty violent. Now it's not an all-out fight, but it's really pushing and pulling. Some people are trying to get in and you're trying to stop them getting in, and you have to be able to do this in the most non-violent way possible. So this is a specific type of self-defense training that we need, and internal Kung Fu really goes together with this. Tai Chi is a style of internal Kung Fu, and that is perhaps most famous of these things. The Tai Chi have a very powerful stance that can help you resist being pushed or pulled over. That's the idea of the training. So in this series here, I really want to dedicate this little self-defense series to the sovereign warriors. So I've called this sovereign self-defense. And if we can get this idea of how to use the body, things like that become quite easy. We've got to be able to use our body structure to resist being pushed or pulled, to stop people getting in or stop people getting past you. Now I'm starting here with my friend here. Now we're just a couple of old guys, so we're doing this very gently, very carefully. But actually we've got to be very gentle, very careful to try and get this technique. It's not about brute force, it's about getting your skeletal alignment. You see, we just practiced pushing each other there. Now what we've got to do is grip the floor. So you've got locked out legs, you squeeze the glutes, the belly's pulled in, your toes are gripping the floor, so you've got a sort of rigidity to your body. Now you practice pushing each other to see how that feels. What you're trying to do is feel that the push transmits itself down through the structure into the ground. So you're not using much work, you're not doing much work to resist it. All you've got to do is hold the correct bone structure to resist the push. And there, in between every exercise, just loosen up and relax, make sure there's no residual tension. And now we're trying the same thing but with one foot forward. Now the legs are still straight, we're still locking out the legs, and you're pushing the hips a bit forward, you're twisting the hips to the front, your weight is coming forward to the front foot, and I've got a nice neutral spine, a backwards arch. I'm lifting up the rib cage a bit, lifting up the shoulders and arching slightly back. But to counteract that, I've got to pull the belly in, hold the belly tight. So this will bring strength to the lumbar spine. So now as he's pushing me, I've got to resist it, and I've got to take it down through the lumbar, down through the hips to the back foot. So again, very gently, very carefully. We're not actually competing with each other, we're trying to help each other. And you can also feel it when you push your opponent or partner there. When you push them, you can feel when it connects through the ground for them. So you can see, yeah, okay, now that feels strong, I'm pushing into the ground. So here what I'm emphasizing is shifting the weight forward. I'm actually dropping my body weight into the front hip and twisting the hips to the front, so there's a slight twist through my spine, through the hips, and that allows a stretch through the joints which connects the bone structure together. You see, although it doesn't look like we're doing much here, what we're trying to do is stretch open the bone structure and hold it in just the right geometry so that the force transmits through. Now with bent legs, you see, so the legs are bent, but as you sit down into this horse riding stance, I've got to have a slight backwards projection of the hips. So there's a slight backwards arch. The hips are open at the back and open at the front, and the knees are slightly apart. So there's a dynamic stretch in the hip joint itself, and I can feel that. And that opens up the hip joint, and I'm sitting my body weight into that stretch. So this is very efficient in holding a body weight. And furthermore, now I'm twisting the back hip from the back foot and pushing forward through the spine into my partner here. So I've got to feel that the push goes through that opened up hip joint, through the knee and down through the ankle into the ground. And the same when he's pushing me. I've got to resist the push, not so much by fighting back, but by sinking down into the correct structure, so that the push goes down. And what you've got to do is you've got to do this ever so slowly and carefully to experiment. You've got to make minute adjustments. It's very difficult to teach this just through a video. So I'm hoping that you can watch what we're doing here, and you basically got to play with it. You've just got to get a partner and have a go pushing each other in different ways and trying to find different ways of standing and sinking into the joints such that the force transmits through you. And now what we're doing here is taking a step back. So we're absorbing a push. So when someone catches you by surprise, the push comes in, you're not ready for it, you take a step back, but as you take a step back, you're immediately using that step to try and sink into that good structure. So you're immediately opening up the hips, stretching open the spine, pulling the belly in, sinking into the back hip as you absorb, but you're taking that, you're cushioning that push all the way through and then sinking it down into the ground. So you absorb it not so much by falling backwards as by sinking down, like you're sitting into a chair behind you. You're projecting your hips down into a chair and trying to keep a vertical spine, or a spine leaning very slightly forward, but if it leans forward, it levers at the hips. So this is the idea of a straight push. So we had a vertical spine, a straight spine, feet together or 1 foot behind. 1 foot behind is of course stronger. Now we're trying side to side. So you stand up here with your hands out, stretched out either side. Then I'm pushing on the arm. So this is creating a twist through your body. So now this is like you're a human barricade trying to stop people barge through. Your arms are up at the sides. But we're starting now here with straight legs. So it's ever so detailed. You've got to get the internal structure right. Straight legs, stretched out spine, stretched out arms, and trying to hold that dynamic tension as the person is pushing you, and feel that twist go through your spine into the hips and then down into the ground. So you're not just resisting with your arm, you're resisting across your body all the way to the opposite hip. So the secret is not, again, brute force. You've got to do this very gently, very carefully. You're not trying to push your opponent over. You're trying to help them feel the connections in their body working. This is about integrating your bone structure together into a single solid unit. So it's not one arm, one leg doing anything. It's the whole body doing it together. And it's the geometry of the body sinking down into the ground. Now again, we do the same thing with one leg forward. So this gives you more dynamic strength, because it's also one leg forward, you've got a twist. You've got a twist through the hips, and you use that twist through the spine, into the shoulders, into the arms. Now experiment with the rib cage. You see, you've got to lift and expand the rib cage, lift it up a bit. This will open up the ribs and add more power, more stretch through the spine. Now the trouble is, if you stretch up too tall, your waist gets weak, so you've got to pull the belly in tight and activate the obliques. You see, there's an arching back that activates the back muscles, but there's a pulling in with the belly that activates the front muscles, and those two together create a dynamic tension. And once you've got that dynamic tension, you use the obliques and the hips to create a twist or absorb a force in a twisting motion. See, now I'm pushing into his arm, so he's got to absorb the force through a twist in his body. This is about connecting everything together and creating an elasticity. You see, you don't want to feel it just in the shoulder, for example. If you feel it in only one joint, you've got to try and even it out. You create an isometric tension to control the joints, and then try and even out the stretch all the way through the body, so that it is absorbed evenly and into the ground. So for me here, I'm dropping my weight into the front hip, so I'm using my body weight. I'm keeping a vertical spine, stretching up the spine and the rib cage, arching back. So I'm evening it out. So as he's pushing my arm, I'm feeling it stretch like an elastic band across my body and into the ground. Now we're doing it a little bit more randomly, so it's getting a bit closer to reality. And each time I'm pushing him, he's got to find a way of sinking and absorbing that push into the ground easily. Remember, it's not about working hard, it's about efficiency. There's a way of using your bone structure such that this becomes you can become virtually immovable, because you're pushing a person through the bones at just the right angle that it doesn't go anywhere. You can't go anywhere. So now he's having a go at me again randomly. And this is where the awareness comes in. You've got to feel inside your body, feel where the push is happening, and then try and absorb it through your structure. You open up the bone structure, try and find a neutral position, or as close to the neutral position as possible, a nice even stretch through the spine and through everything, and absorb it that way. Now we're doing something different. We're just relaxing and absorbing the push, allowing your body to move. It's the same principle. We want to move through the structure evenly. Not any one joint, but the whole body links together like a snake and just slips away. So you allow your joints to move, allow the spine to move, to absorb the push, or here it's a slow motion strike. Now, of course, if it's a real powerful, fast strike, this is difficult to do, but if you get the hang of this, and there's a whole martial art that do this called Sistema, a Russian internal martial art, and they do a lot of work on this, but if you can do this efficiently with true relaxation and flow, then you can absorb even quite powerful, fast strikes. And this again is for the sovereign constables, the sovereign warriors, and sometimes the domestic security forces are very heavy-handed, and you're not allowed to fight back. This is how you can absorb all sorts of things happening to you without fighting back. You can mitigate the impact. So even if he's punching me in the face, if I flow with it, wherever I get hit, it will reduce the impact. You see, so that is the relaxation version of this, going floppy. So this is non-violent self-defense. Non-violent self-defense, and this is the approach that the sovereign warriors need to have. Now, of course, in the end, we may have to do real physical self-defense. You have to fight back. Now, this is where I'm doing this with the punch bag. So I can go a little bit faster, a little bit more power. But I'm not really doing that now. I'm still trying to show you something ever so simple. Simple punching and maybe a simple kicking. But what I'm trying to do is find the alignment, the flow through the structure, and use the alignment and the flow to create the power. So this is how we do it efficiently. It's the same as I was doing back there, pushing and pulling. I'm using the same alignment to create a push, but I'm pushing through into the punch, and that push is getting a bit faster and a bit faster until it becomes an impact. And here the same with a turning kick. See, it's about relaxation, flow, and alignment. It's not so much about physical strength. The strength is in the joints, the tendons, and the ligaments. So that is where you just need a bit of isometric tension to control the joints, but just enough so that they move in the right alignment. See here, if I'm kicking and punching, it's still quite relaxed, but I can do it because the alignment is right. If I throw the punch or the kick out of the wrong alignment, then of course you twist your knee, you twist your elbow. So it takes a bit of practice. That's why don't go too hard, too fast. And all of this is a push. I'm using structure to push. And it becomes an impact when I push a bit faster and a bit faster. So in the sovereign warrior movement, you might have to push back. This is how you push back. You can push back like a strike, but do it slow motion. So here again you can see relatively slow. I'm holding a structure through the spine. Rib cage is up and back a little bit. Shoulders are up and back a little bit. The knees are sunk down into a horse riding stance. I've got a vertical neutral spine, and I'm just twisting, pivoting from the waist, the belly, and the obliques. And I'm holding everything semi-rigid. So I've got a slight isometric tension so that the movement flows through this elastic structure, and the push or the impact has force. Now here's another little practice that I do just to practice resisting impact. So I've got to have exactly the right horse riding stance, the right alignment of the spine, slight backwards arch, rib cage lifted up and back a little bit. So when I push the bag away and it comes back and hits me, I don't fall forward. Now if you get this wrong, you'll see when it hits you, you fall forward. You've got to be able to sink the impact right down into the ground. And you take the impact actually in the upper back. So I'm lifting up the rib cage, lifting up the shoulders, expanding and stretching back. So the impact is actually at the top of the back and a little bit right down at the sacrum. But I'm really taking it up high. And I'm not pushing my head back too far so I hit my head. I've got to get the exact alignment right, the exact position of the impact right. Now I even try this here sometimes from the front. So this could be a shoulder barge, you're pushing someone back with a shoulder, or even the rib cage, a chest barge, and if you can do this effectively, you can create even a powerful strike with your shoulder. And no one knows you're actually hitting. No, I was just holding and resisting, but actually you did a little strike with your shoulder joint. Here's the same with the elbow. I'm just holding my arms up in a defensive position, but pushing back with a bounce through my body. So again, this is a little way how you can fight back without looking like you're fighting back. You've got to master the structure, because whatever force that they're going to be driving forward, you absorb their force through your structure into the ground, and you become a bit like an elastic band. So you bounce that force down and push back. So I hope this made sense. There's quite a lot to unpack here, but I'm going to do more in the series. I'm not quite sure how many yet. So please stay tuned for part 2 coming soon. And do leave me any questions or comments below, and I will get back to you. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in any of these other videos here.